Welcome to episode 60 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. It's the last show of the year, so this week we're going to take a look back at some of the memorable moments of 2024. From world records to standout six-star finishers, from tears to tales of triumph, we're going to take a look back and talk about things that have stood out to us in the last 12 months. And in celebration of the fact that we now have welcomed the TCS Sydney Marathon as the 7th Abbott World Marathon Major, we've taken the very tough task of picking just 7 moments to share with you. Spoiler alert, Sydney just might be one of them. Right, let's go. Martin, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
It's good to see you. You're looking very festive and Christmassy. Not really. Have you got a Christmas jumper on?
No, I have a cashmere sweater on.
You see?
You can't feel it, but you can see it.
I feel like
you look bundled up too.
Well, it's cold, isn't it? I feel like I should have worn as it's the last show of the year, should have worn my Christmas jumper. But I don't actually own a Christmas jumper. How grinchy is that?
You don't own even like an ugly Christmas sweater?
No.
What?
Nothing. No, don't own a Christmas jumper. No, I'm not in for that kind of fun.
I not only have an ugly Christmas sweater, I have an ugly Christmas dress. Actually, 2 ugly Christmas dresses.
So you've got multiple things for Christmas. I feel like I should have. I've seen some really cool Christmas jumpers this year, but don't have one. Don't have one at all. What an old misery. What have I been up to? I've been feeling a little bit under the weather, Dina, the last couple of weeks. I know.
You're hiding it well.
Well, I think last time we recorded, you were on this massive discipline push. You probably still are. And I was the opposite, right? So, I'm at the end, tired at the end of the year on a no discipline push. And I'm still off the discipline wagon. So, there's nothing wrong with a Kit Kat for breakfast. So I've been like,
a Kit Kat for breakfast, Martin? So you are not walking the walk, sir.
No, I'm not. I'm either all in or I'm out, and I'm definitely out at the moment. I'm still out, and then I think what I'm going to do is just push the out to Christmas. Like, let me get through Christmas full gas on the chilled out zone, and then perhaps I'll pick it up again. What tends to happen with me, Dina, is I relax and take foot off the gas, and then I think, oh, this is quite nice. So I've still been out, still been doing a little bit of running. Been out with Liz running, but not very far. 5 or 6 miles. I've had a couple of tries to run a bit quicker, but hasn't gone very well, so I've just knocked it on the head. And then last week we had all the children ill, as is classic at the end of term. They keep going down with bugs, and one after the other. They've been having time off school, so we've sort of been rallying around the house trying to not have everybody off for too long, all at the same time. As we go into Christmas, what we're hoping is that the holidays will begin and all the bugs we will have had. See, that's the plan. We'll have had all the bugs, and then we'll have this super bug-free house, all over immune Christmas bug-free house. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. I pictured your family last week like dominoes stacked together, and like one at a time that was what you guys are knocking each other over, but it's time to reset those dominoes in time to celebrate the holidays together.
Yes, only a couple more days. I think as this show comes out after Christmas, I think, doesn't it? But we're recording it just before Christmas.
It's okay to have ebbs and flows. We can't be like on and focused and pushing towards the goal 365 days of the year. We really need downtime and time
Dina.
to reset. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I am troughing at the minute. But yeah, we'll be peaking again. What about now? I do know what you've been up to, and it's like, so here's me. Yeah, still in the trough. There's you. Like, okay, come on.
Right. But I told you, Martin, before the show started, like I can brag about a few things that have been going on, but I could also sit here and get dark on you and tell you how ill my husband is as the year is wrapping up and we still don't know what's going on with him. But on the lighter side of things, our Gold Club class, the Abbott World Marathon Majors Gold Club class. If you don't know about it, you can Google it and get into this very intimate class of geeky marathon runners that we just love everything about numbers and traveling and running. We typically do breakfast with the boss at the World Marathon Majors in the various cities, and that boss is none other than CEO Donna Stone hosting. Well, she was vacationing here in Mammoth Lake, so I had dinner with the boss, and it was so fun and a perfect weekend because she got fresh powder. She got fresh snow to play in. So Donna Stone was here in Mammoth Lakes enjoying some fresh tracks on her skis, and we had dinner here at the house. I cooked her, of course.
What did you make? Come on.
I had to make filet mignon.
What do you make when Donna Stone comes to dinner? Like, that's pressure. Yes. What did you do?
It was a lot of pressure. I made filet mignon, and I didn't grill it because it was snowing out. I had to pan sear it and then bake it in the oven.
Was that because the grill, it's outside and you didn't want to go outside?
I didn't want to be spit on. So I made fillets, and then I made this chilled beet salad over yogurt with some fresh mint and basil on top. And then I made a Brussels sprout salad with pistachios and pomegranates with a lemon vinaigrette. And so that was dinner with Donna, and she brought a really nice bottle of red wine. And it was lovely to sit there and visit with her as the snow was falling outside. On a more stressful note, I was also filming.
Ooh.
And
what were you filming?
United Airlines is doing a mini documentary on Mammoth Lakes, and they asked me to host it.
Oh.
So for 3 days, the cameras were on, and I took the United Airline crew all over Mammoth, showing my favorite things, from clumsily cross-country skiing to going to a fireworks show on the mountain to bowling with my daughter. It was just really fun. Took them all around Mammoth, and it is going to air in airports globally starting the beginning of January.
Oh, wow. So like if you're on a United Airlines flight, you might see you hosting about Mammoth. So tell me this, like, just indulge me for a moment. What was the thing that, if you're in Mammoth, okay, this is the thing that everybody wants to see. So it's like, right, this is the number one thing. And then what's the thing that you didn't include, but you really would kind of like to, but didn't? Do you know what I mean? So there's...
I'm so exhausted because I did include everything from like skiing on the mountain. That's what people know Mammoth Lakes, Mammoth Mountain. It's a ski resort. But it was even grabbing stuff to make s'mores and going to the village, the pedestrian village here, where they have a bunch of fire pits, and just making s'mores by the fire pit in the village. So I really included just about everything.
So there was no little secret thing that you think, I'm not letting on.
Well, that was the secret. I shared my fire pit in the village with people. And maybe now I won't get a seat at the fire pit to make s'mores anymore.
I love it. I love the fact that you did all those different things. Look forward to trying to see that. Maybe if there's an online link, you'll let us know. Right, shall we crack on? Before we dig deep into some of the memorable marathon moments from 2024 as the year comes to an end, Dina, what were some of your personal favourites? Like, not the ones we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, meeting you for the first time in New York was a really was a showstopper, right? I mean, to be hosting this podcast together for quite a while now, and meeting in person for the first time in New York, I was as nervous for that as I was for actually running the marathon. So that was definitely one of the highlights of my year. But also, it was an Olympic year, being able to take my husband, Andrew, and my daughter, Piper, to Paris to witness the Olympic Games was just so exciting. Brilliant. Paris did such a great job. And so that was a really special time for our entire family, which brings me to my favorite episode, was episode 51, where I got to interview the newly crowned Olympic champion in the 1500 meters, Cole Hawker. Yeah. He pulled off a big upset to beat Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Josh Kerr. That rivalry about Jakob and Josh was all the talk leading into that 1500 meters, and Cole Hawker was able to to run away with for the win in the final sprint. So so being able to hear from him
and to get him on the show, quite a coup, so quickly post games.
Yeah, he wasn't even back home. He was in Switzerland.
And that came about just because you share an agent, right? Your agent was Ray Flynn, and of course Ray's now Cole's agent. So it's who you know, isn't it, really?
It is. You got a name drop.
You can't just phone up the Olympic champion. Go, all right, coming on Marathon Talk. Doesn't quite work like that. So, well done for bagging that one for the show. Yeah.
Good old Ray followed through for me. So it has been a long year and full of a lot of wonderful stories. What are some highlights for you, Martin?
Well, I think Olympic marathon was fantastic. Olympic women's marathon specifically was, one of my racing highlights. New York City Marathon, of course, with you. And I think mainly because... it was with you, of course. Whoops, nearly dropped myself in it. Mainly because it was with you. But actually, I haven't done a marathon for a while. Not a road marathon, not a major like that. So, that was good. I think it was great having... It almost reignited a little bit of that. I do quite enjoy this. Sometimes we've said we ebb and flow in our annual motivations, but also, we can ebb and flow in our life cycle of motivation, can't we? Particularly when we've been doing this sport for a long time. It's not always consistent where you're high on marathons all the time. It's sometimes you think, no, but New York really ignited a love again.
Which is interesting you say that, because going into it, you're dealing with a hamstring issue, which is kind of scary, right? Going into a 26.2 mile journey with a hamstring that's not really cooperating every day.
That's what kind of makes it the journey that it is, isn't it? And I don't mind tackling that, particularly when there's no pressure. So the only thing you need to change is your mind, right? So it's easy, really. To change your mind about something. You just got to be in the right mindset to do it.
Right.
For New York, that was easy because it was never a pressure event. It was never me thinking I've got to do this or I've got to do that. So,
right. You talked about that even in our episode that we covered New York, was that like it reached your expectations because you wanted to go in and have a good time and experience the marathon and connect with people. Well, it's really
important, isn't it? And it'll come through in parts of the show today because, picking, if anyone listening, if you're thinking about, okay, well, how do I pick my memorable marathon moments from 2024? What goes into that? Is it the time you ran your fastest? Is it the time you ran with somebody you've always wanted to run with? Is it a time when you approached the race differently? Was it watching someone else, complete a marathon maybe for their first time? Following somebody's journey. So all of these things, when you put them into a big marathon melting pot of, yearly moments, that's what brings everything to life. And that was the thing for me with New York, was it was one of those things that I was really flexible and happy. I would have been really happy with whatever came out the other end. I think I'd have been slightly frustrated if it was a DNF.
Yeah, taxi, if you were in a taxi.
Yeah, taxi for yelling, says Dina Castor. She's called it for me at mile 17. Yeah. Uber for the bloke dragging his hamstring.
Yeah.
No, so that was really good. And I also really enjoyed my conversation with Becky and Dan Sharp. Becky, I've known for a long time. She helped me set up Stormbreak, and she had this really terrible car accident, and she was actually a pedestrian and was hit by a driver under the influence of alcohol and drugs. And so, it was a really shocking time. She spent a lot of time in a coma and the best part of a year in hospital. And
they have 2 kids. Am I remembering that
kids.
Right?
Yeah,
3 kids.
Yeah. So she missed her youngest daughter's first birthday. But I was actually out shopping today, Dina, as you do, being prepped for Christmas, and I bumped into her in the shopping centre. So
she was shopping.
It was brilliant. She was out. We had a lovely conversation. It was brilliant.
I just got the chills.
Yeah, it was brilliant to see her. To think there she is. She's out buying her kids Christmas presents. So that, looking back on the year, what a great episode that was. Right, shall we dig into some other moments? Now, these are not in any kind of hierarchical order of importance. They're just 7 magical, different, challenging, but nonetheless moments from the world of marathon running in 2024. Why don't we kick it off with Ruth Chepngetich world record? It was incredible, of course, in Chicago. Ruth Chepngetich world records got to be one of the 7 top moments of 2024. She ran 2:09.56, mind-blowing. First time a woman has ever gone sub 2:10 in marathon.
Right. And let's look at some of the stats behind that 2:09.56, because the first 5K was 15 flat. So, I mean, she was just out the door and so focused on obliterating the world record. It was putting her on track, that 15 flat 5K, for a 2:07 marathon. And everybody, including me, I was sitting in that women's lead vehicle calling the race thinking like, she hasn't learned her lesson. She still goes out hard like this. Every time she runs, she's going to blow up. But how much is she going to blow up? So it wasn't much, because her first 10K was covered in 30 minutes and 14 seconds. So she slowed a little bit, but not a lot. At the Paris Olympics, Beatrice Chebet won the 10K 30, in a slower time.
Unbelievable going through it, isn't it? Just even talking about it now. Like, if, we were reporting on one of the road 10Ks this year, and we were like, it's just been won by whoever won it in, 3014. We'd be like, that is rapid.
Mind-blowing, right.
But that's for 10K. She's a quarter of the way in to her marathon, nipping through halfway in 64:16. The quickest half marathon by any woman in the world this year.
Just unbelievable. And it's the 5th fastest half marathon ever by any woman. So just historically, this run was breaking barriers from the very beginning. Really, it would have been the women's world record just as recent as 2021 in the half marathon. So it was setting up to either just be this race where she fell apart and you're like, oh man, that was such a poorly run race, but not so poorly run as we would learn.
Not at all. I mean, what an unbelievable run. She was 7 minutes, 36 seconds ahead of second place, Satume Kebede. She split 65-40 for the second half. There was a bit of time in the latter stages of the race when that first ever sub 2:10 looked in doubt a little bit as she started to, unbelievably, she dropped outside 5-minute miling, but she ran 2 of her fastest miles in the entire race in mile 25 and mile 26, closing out in 4:45 and 4:49 pace. Unbelievable. She's the only woman to have won 3 Chicago Marathon titles.
Right. So her first half, 64:16, second half, 65:40, 3-time Chicago Marathon winner. She ran the fastest half marathon ever by a woman on U.S. soil. Ruth Chepngetich broke the tape. Everybody's jaws dropped to the ground wherever in the world they were watching from.
What a moment.
And so we have to open up the show talking about her.
Yeah, what a marathon moment. And you and I spoke at the beginning of the year just about how incredible global women's marathon running. We were very excited about global women's marathon running, and of course it certainly delivered with that run. It wasn't just that run. Sticking with global women's marathon running, I mentioned it in the intro, but Sifan Hassan's Olympic gold medal in the marathon. She had a busy Paris Olympic schedule. Some might say a little bit bonkers crazy. She was entered in the 1500, the 5, the 10, and the marathon in almost true Emil Zatopek style. He did a similar in Helsinki all those years ago. She went for 3 events rather than 4. She got bronze medal in the 5. She got bronze medal in the 10, and then she ran the marathon a couple of days later, less than 48 hours. And it came right down to the wire, didn't it?
Right. Can you imagine having all those miles, because the 5,000 has a semifinal to it, having all those miles under your belt, and then it comes down to a finishing kick in the marathon distance. And it was a memorable one. If our listeners have not seen that race, you have to Google it. Do a search on your computer for the 2024 women's Olympic finishing sprint, because it was Sifan Hassan who outkicked Tigst Assefa. Elbows were flying because it was a windy finish. It was a kind of strategic to navigate the finishing turns of that race before its beautiful finish. Very scenic finish. It was actually a very scenic race altogether, going out to Versailles and coming back. So the whole race is worth watching visually, but such a strategic race out of Sifan Hassan. And as you were talking, Martin, I was even thinking that Ruth Chepngetich last year was going for her three-peat at the Chicago Marathon, and it was Sifan Hassan who won and disrupted that for her. Sifan Hassan won last year in the second fastest marathon in history. So this is like, when you look at the depth of women's marathon running right now, that we're talking about Ruth Chepngetich's world record in a sub 2 hour, 10 minutes to Sifan Hassan's win at the Paris Olympics. It's an exciting time for women's marathon running.
It's really good. Another, I think, our third marathon moment of the year, sort of, in a similar way, I think global marathon running is really picking up on inclusivity and, opening events to letting the world see that the marathon is something which is, there is a requirement actually, to make it more open, to make it more accessible, to encourage as many and as different people into the sport as possible. And I think the next kind of memorable marathon moment from 2024 was that for me. It was Chris Nickick's 6-star medal. Chris became the first runner with Down syndrome to become a 6-star finisher when he completed Tokyo's marathon. His 6-star story featured on the Majors YouTube channel. It is really, really good.
Yeah, you'll have to go back, and I just feel like I want to go back and re-listen to all of these episodes that we've highlighted, these memorable moments, because I've gotten so much out of listening. I've gotten so much out of those conversations. And Chris was certainly an inspiring one. One of the things that is coming to mind when I think of our conversation with him was him meeting his girlfriend on the circuit, and now they've got this great relationship, and travel the world together. And I just think it's what this community embodies. Whether you're trying to get your 6-star journey, but someone's got a Boston Marathon jacket on the airplane, and you start that conversation with them, and then you're going on a shakeout run with them or meeting up for a pre-race dinner. It's really creating a lot of valuable connections globally, which says so much about what this sport gives to us.
It's hard, but I knew I should overcome those challenges. I did finish Tokyo, and I got to a 6-star.
You did it. Oh, that was amazing.
Kids who may have Down syndrome or autism, I know it's getting hard, but just keep up the good work, and maybe one day you can go after me, please.
The next amazing moment of 2024 continues the thread of celebrating the challenge of the marathon event. And so, for our 4th marathon amazing event, amazing memorable moment of 2024, is the age group world champs. They were crowned in Sydney. It was the 4th age group World Championships held within the Sydney Marathon this year. There were some astonishing performances from some of the runners who earned gold medals, and particularly the highlight sometimes is just how marathon running lets you extend into longevity, so into longer life, and particularly the older age groups, and the serious speed and the serious times that some people in the older age groups just leave you gobsmacked by what they can accomplish. In the men's, Martin Flukiger from Switzerland, in the 70 to 75 category, ran 3:41. 3:41. I think I'd be pleased to run 3:41. He's got 25 years on me in winning the age group. And in the 80 plus category, Mayeon Jun Kim from the USA ran 4:40 to win. 4:40, 80 plus. Have a go, Dina.
Yeah, it is so. I mean, I shake my head every time we see these results pop into our feed. That it is. I want to say that it must be just that purpose-driven journey that these runners are on. That they're setting these goals and getting out there and executing them much like a professional runner would do, but they've got jobs and families and other things. Maybe if you're 80, hopefully you're retired by then, for Myeon Jun Kim. But on the women's side, it was equally impressive. Elizabeth Borrett from Canada ran 5:52 to win the 80 plus category. In doing so, she became one of the few people who now have 7 stars after earning that 7th star in Sydney as an age group runner. It was specific to the age group championships that you would get a 7th star. They're the only ones privy to it if they were entered into the age group world championships. So that was the first club, the first group of people that have earned their 7th star. But Martin, we're going to have a chance to get a star this upcoming year by journeying into Sydney to run that race. So I hope that's on your list of things to do in 2025.
You keep going
We don't
on.
have to race. Now I'm even backpedaling on all my smack talking I was doing in the previous episode about Sydney. I'm fine with having it be a similar journey to New York City, because that was just awesome to be able to experience New York City in the way that we did.
Dina?
Nope. I'll be game ready if you start to smack talk back. I'm just testing the waters here.
Dina Castor's just like, get yourself down. Don't come.
I'll be ready for anything.
She's like, nope, I'm not having that. Brilliant. No, I'm quite happy with the cool approach. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the cool approach. Okay, shall we move on? And look, we can't talk about moments in marathon running in 2024. Not all of them are, memorable for the right reasons. In February of 2024, the legend that is Kelvin Kiptum lost his life in a car accident, tragically. And celebrating Kelvin Kiptum's life achievements in the marathon is something really that we couldn't overlook, despite it being quite a somber one. But looking back over the last 12 months, it's really important. It was February the 11th. News filtered through that Kelvin Kiptum died in a road accident in Kenya, along with his coach Gervais Hakizimana, and it was one of those moments where I thought, really? Watching Kelvin race was just incredible, and you felt like there was so much left for him to give. He barely got started in the sport. He was only 24 years old. He ran 2:00:35, knocking on the door of a legitimate sub 2 hour marathon run when he did that in Chicago. what an incredible thing to witness. And we were all anticipating the next time he stepped out on the roads, he was potentially going to be really attacking that 2-hour barrier. He had announced that he was just heading to Rotterdam in April to try and do that, and then, before we knew it, he was gone. 1 year on from his world record, there was a moment, I think, of celebration of his life on the start line of the 2024 Chicago Marathon. He's remembered by all 50,000 runners before they followed in his footsteps. We did have a show about him, episode 36, I think it was. And, we had Kerry Pinkowski on the show, race director of the Bank of America Marathon. And he said, when we spoke to him, that he was just amazing. So we thought we'd drop a little bit of Kerry speaking about Kelvin into this week's episode.
He was just amazing. And, our team here still has a challenge processing what happened, because you think about what he did and what he could do and what he would have been. And he just scratched the surface. I think he could have gone faster in Chicago. I mean, Dina, you've been here a bunch of times. You've won here. You're a champion. You've covered the race. I don't think I've seen a better day in all the years I've been to. And there's times where athletes have never had a day like that. And the really great ones, and Calvin, in my opinion, was the greatest. He seized the moment. He took the opportunity because we would never have a day like that, I think, in his mindset. And I think we saw a lot of other athletes that did the same thing. So it just makes it's a difficult time for all of us. It's a difficult time for sports fans in the city. I mean, he put the marathon front and center. He put marathon running front and center. Just an amazing young man.
It was such a memorable moment to be on that starting line and witness a beautiful video montage of the short and fabulous career of Kelvin Kiptum, followed by an eerie moment of silence as people honored that journey, and it was an unforgettable moment, an unforgettable performance, and it really is juxtaposed because now Chicago has both world records on the men's and the women's side, and done very differently, right? A very young and capable Kelvin Kiptum. Everybody, when he hit that finish line, everybody was thinking about what he could do in the future. Whereas Ruth Chepngetich did that kind of she's been a world champion before. And so the talk of her was really like, oh, this was career capping. So in one, it seemed like, for Ruth, it was career capping, and for Kelvin, it was all about what he's going to do in the future. So really interesting to have these two moments on our list when we think about world records, but how they were done in very different parts of an athlete's career.
Right, let's move on to another one. And this memorable moment, we've spoken about him quite a few times this year, actually. We tried to tell lots of different stories throughout the year that speak to the inspiration of marathon running and the motivation that you can find in every race that you do. And for Dina and I, when we ran in New York, we had a big dose of motivation when we met up with Mark Rogerson and Katie Garrity. And theirs was a story that Abbott World Marathon Majors followed throughout the year, particularly in Boston. Mark's a visually impaired runner. He was guided by Katie through every one of his majors, all the way through to his 6-star in Boston in April. And they're just an incredible couple of runners, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I think the amazing thing about them is that Mark is based in the UK and Katie lives in Chicago. So they stay in touch, and how they keep pace, and I just feel like they're the best of friends when you meet them. They are like lockstep, right? And as they run their 26.2 miles together. But for running and training, that they can be so in sync when they do meet up at the races is really admirable.
This remote connection that they, it must have. And then it's just ignited some more when they come together and they do their racing together and they're running together. And I love the fact that when we interviewed them, they both, like, I think you automatically think that Katie supports Mark, right? Because she's the guide runner. And you could easily be lured into thinking, oh, well, Katie does this wonderful thing. She's the guide runner, da, 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 da. And then you meet them when you're running and you talk to them and you actually realise they're really running together. Yeah. And, they really genuinely are a couple of runners helping each other. And I love that. It's not, well, Katie's the guide and da, 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 da. It's two runners really helping each other. And I think it's a leveler for all of us when we do marathons, just out there helping each other, crawling along the ground, however it is. Yeah. And that was what came across with me when I met Mark and Katie, is they, their connection when they're not together, and then their connection to help each other when they are.
Right. It's a symbiotic relationship. And it was so hugely emotional, such an emotional moment when they were able to cross that finish line in Boston and earn their 6 stars. Let's relive that moment right now.
You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it.
I told you we could do it, didn't I? I told you we could do it.
You did it. I was so proud of Mark. I was so happy that marathon was done. You did it. You did it.
It was our time. We both knew exactly what we both put into this. I know how much it meant to her.
I told you we could do it, didn't I?
You did it.
I know how hard she'd worked, and I was just unbelievably proud.
Crossing the finish line was one thing, but I think putting that medal on Mark was just, it like hit me like, oh my God, we did it.
Right, and our 7th moment, of course, we're going to round off with number 7, because number 7, our 7th memorable marathon moment of the year, is the TCS Sydney Marathon, was officially announced as the 7th Abbott World Marathon Major. And Dina, you and I were there in the media centre. I must admit, I had a bit of shakes on, because not because I was excited, because I was so hungry and I was so tired. We'd finished New York City Marathon, and Danny and Abbott had given us this. Well, you got to be in the media centre by 2:00 or whenever it was. I remember thinking, oh, I've just finished. Got to try and find the media centre, get there, and be in some sort of sensible state to listen to this. And I was at the back, sort of wobbling, thinking, I just need something to eat. I've got to try and stand up straight, not fall over while they announce this 7th star.
Someone give Martin a sandwich. Yeah. I remember being a little nervous as we were coming into Central Park, oh my gosh, we might not make it back in time for that press conference. And so that was kind of our only governor that we had that day. Oh yeah, we can get done in 4.5 hours. But I was oh my gosh, with all of Martin's P stops, we're really cutting it close here.
And we were sat on the bench at the finish, and because it's you, people kept coming up and chatting to you. And I was come on, we got to go. And then the walk, it wasn't very far from the Abbott World Majors finish tent where they give out the 6-star medals to the media tent. Wasn't that far. It was less than 10 minutes, a few hundred meters. But it felt like it really hurt.
Eternity.
And took ages. And that post-marathon drag. My hips were tight. I was walking like I'd kind of ridden a horse for 3 days. I was trying to get there. It was really painful. And there's steps up to the media centre, wasn't there? And I went up the steps.
7 of them. There were 7.
Yeah, I went up the steps and I was oh man, this is really hurting. And then straight in. So literally, we were probably at the announcement 15 minutes after we'd finished.
Right. And I remember when we sat down on that bench, how good it felt. It's always amazing to me how you can get to that finish line and then it hurts so badly. Like there's not one more step. Like you utilize everything. Like your body just knows to use up every little bit. So we got to that bench and sat down, and it felt so good to sit down. But then we looked at our watches like, oh my gosh, we have to get, and you could look across through the trees over there. Like, can something bring me there? Is there a golf cart? Does the wristband I'm wearing give me access to a golf cart to get me over to that building? Yeah. But we made it. We made it in time. So this is about Sydney, not about how pathetic it was for us to get from the finish line to that.
It was good, wasn't it? It was buzzing. The media center was buzzing.
It was so awesome. And of course, Wayne, the race director of the TCS Sydney Marathon, put on his number 7 hat cool. And took to the microphone. It was just a really great moment. And in that moment, you know what I felt? I'm going to be at this for another year because here comes Sydney, right? Yeah. So I love that the Abbott World Marathon Majors is building this to keep us going. You know, we've met people over the years, Martin, that are going on their second and third round of getting their 6-star medals. But now it gives us something to get excited about, to travel to Sydney. I would love to bring my family and really make sure we're making a running vacation out of it. And hopefully our listeners are thinking along those same lines to really add a lot of bang for our buck as we venture down under.
Yeah. It sounds like, you know, the other thing I think is that, like, you know, here we are talking about us being in the media centre, and it all sounds really big and like really posh and all that. But it actually was quite intimate and friendly, you know, and all the race directors were there of all the other marathons. They were all there, and they were all behind Wayne. You know, they understand what he's been through in the last few years to get, you know, the event to the point at which it can apply even, you know, years ago. And then to go through the 2 years of assessment and to successfully achieve that, and to see each of the World Marathon Majors race directors, you know, they're a unique bunch of individuals who understands what it entails to put on a race of this size and stature. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how Wayne responds, becoming one of those, and also how the event responds, you know, because it's still got some growth, right? It's still got some growth to do. And so I wonder what Sydney's going to be like in 10 years' time. You know, that's, I think, what I'm excited for, you know, excited to get there and maybe have a go. That was our 7 marathon moments. Do you have one more thing to add, Dina?
No, I was just going to say we'll insert some of that presser right here so that our listeners and our viewers can enjoy that moment. You put it so beautifully. I actually teared up a little when you talked about how intimate that press conference was, because it was just that line of race directors right there supporting Wayne as he took to the microphone.
It gives me great pleasure to announce that the 2025 TCS Sydney Marathon presented by ASICS will be the 7th Abbott World Marathon Majors.
Right, that's it. As we are recording, we are bouncing into Christmas 2024. Of course, in my house, I have young-ish children. My boys are 11 and my daughter is 15. And this, I think, you know, for my boys in particular, I wonder if this might be the last Father Christmas year. We've got to be close. What? Like, I'm just not sure how it's going to go next year. They know I think they know the elf doesn't move on his own. I hope they're not listening, by the way. And if, like, well, I bet that's a bit of a trigger for people with young, I'm sorry. If you've got young children, you might need to rewind that bit and they're listening.
What's your elf? Where's your elf today?
Well, often what happens is Liz and I
panic. Forget, and he's in the same spot.
We panic really late at night, and then we have to get up early in the morning and try and remember where we haven't put him. I think he's in a bunch.
It's stressful.
I think he's in a bunch of flowers somewhere. And then, you know, I'm just like, it's just so brilliant with younger children. You know, Christmas is such a phenomenal time of year for younger children, and so we try and help our kids with all of that. I also recognise, that Christmas isn't great for everyone, and lots of people are on their own, and lots of people miss lots of people at Christmas, and Christmas can be quite lonely, and sometimes Christmas can be really hard. And so it's really important as a marathon running family that if you know someone like that, Christmas isn't all mince pies, turkey, and giving presents. Sometimes people are at home cold and lonely and on their own. So it's a really good time to genuinely reach out and offer support and kindness and compassion to those people.
That's so beautiful, Martin, because when you talk about being a child and Christmas is like about magic and wonder and awe, when you're an adult, you have to create that magic. You have to create that awe and wonder, but you can create it. And that's what it's about. It doesn't, unless you're a child, it doesn't just fall in your lap, a privileged child, I should say. So I think everyone out there, I would encourage you to just create that magic for yourself and for the people around you in a little way. It could be putting on some music on your phone or lighting a candle or a fire in the fireplace and making it just be intentional about creating little flair and joy for the holiday season. It's important to create that if you're not feeling it authentically.
Yeah, and if Christmas isn't your thing and you don't celebrate Christmas, then also we hope you have an opportunity to be calm or to be reflective, to just think about your marathon year as well. It's that time as well when I think as we kick off with an early year show, I better have thought about some goals. I did say, we have said this, Dina. My goals are still cloudy. Is that a good enough description? Cloudy.
It's just cloudy because you're under the weather. You'll have some clarity
Vague.
once your stuffy nose is gone or something.
Vague and nondescript. But we will start thinking about that. Either way, hope you've had a phenomenal 2024 and are excited about 2025.
Yes, indeed. And reflect like we have here today. Please reflect on some of those good moments. We've, years can have their silver linings and they can be clouded in many ways, but to put your emphasis on those silver linings and reflect on the good that came of this year, big and small. And of course, enjoy the run wherever it takes you.